When I was looking at what strategies I wanted to get better at next, Luna Snow caught my eye. And it's not just because I wanted to freeze people and heal my teammates at light speed, I also got entranced with her K-pop nature, and now I might know the name of every single member of BTS, but we don't really need to talk about that right now. Right now we need to talk about Luna Snow, how to play her using her base kit, her ult, and everything in between. So without further ado, let's go ahead and start talking about that. As we start here, I do want to remind you guys that this is all coming from a casual point of view where I'm just having fun with the game, and I think most people are at this point in time. I haven't really watched anybody else's content and learned all I could from them. This is just what I learned and have wanted to show you guys from my experience playing the character and what I think is good to know, especially from a beginner type of view and what you can take in your own gameplay and hopefully improve yourself. So let's go ahead and start talking about this actual kit here, and I want to start by talking about her auto attacks. I'm going to put a link down in the description if you didn't know something very useful on my actual Cloak and Dagger guide, which I'll put on the end screen if you want to watch that next. You guys give me a lot of really useful tips, including that all the exact numbers for abilities are on the Marvel Rivals website. So I've been looking at that, so I'll have all the exact numbers for you guys today when it comes to these abilities. So starting off with these actual auto attacks. Her regular autos are going to be a 3 burst attack. Now each one of those is going to heal for 20 health per tick. It's also going to do 20 damage per tick, all resulting in either 60 heal or 60 damage. So pretty good stuff right there. Now the regular actual basic attacks and the Ice Arts autos seem to be hit scan. I did kind of look this up a little bit just to see what people were saying. I saw some stuff saying that the actual autos aren't technically hit scan, but that they travel at a velocity so fast that they might as well be considered as hit scan. And then I also saw that the actual Ice Arts auto, which is going to be the shift key on a keyboard and mouse, and the, well, one of the buttons for my controller goblins out there. And by the way, people thought I was being mean when I was calling you controller goblins. No, you're my controller goblins. I'm a little keyboard and mouse orc. We're all living in a little fantasy world where we use our preferred input devices, and I love you all. Now, that being said, they are basically going to be hit scanned for the autos, and then they are for the Ice Arts. So when you're aiming the actual Ice Arts or your regular basic attacks, do not try to lead your shots at all. Make sure you keep your actual reticle right on top of the enemies and pull that fire button. Next up, I want to talk about Luna Snow's passive, which if you don't know, if you skate forward for about 0.5 seconds, which is about how long it takes me to finish on a good night, then you're just going to start ice skating. Very good stuff. It gives you increased movement speed and increased jump height. The increased jump height is what I really want to talk about, and I'm actually going to throw it in game so I can show that to you really quickly. This is quite a bit of extra jump height, and what you really want to be using it for is seeing if you can use it to reposition yourself to higher areas of maps so you can get a vision area where you can kind of look down on your teammates, because if you're looking down on your teammates, you can get a better overall look on the fight and then heal your teammates from afar. And at the same time, if there's any half walls in front of you or something like that, you can usually see over those walls and then still heal your teammates from above, versus if you're on the same field as them, then it's not going to be as easy to heal them unless you're literally touching their butt cheeks. And while I love doing that to the homies, we don't exactly want to do that in the middle of a Marvel Rivals gunfight. This is still something that I'm working on with my own gameplays, making sure I watch my own positioning and trying to get up higher with something like this passive, but I want to make sure I bring it up to you guys and also give you the other little tip of try to keep your forward momentum as much as you can, because as soon as you stop moving forward, then it's going to actually lose your skating ability and you have to re-proc that. And like I said, it only takes half a second to actually proc it, but it's still good to keep yourself moving forward as much as you can to keep that passive going as long as possible. Before we move on to start talking about Luna's actual button presses, like her Ice Arts and her little snowball there, I want to tell you about one other part of her passive, which is the fact that you actually heal yourself for 90 HP overall, which is going to be 30 health per tick, and that goes for 3 seconds, 1 tick per second, whenever you use your little snowball freeze or your Ice Arts ability, which is your right click and shift respectively, and whatever it is my controller Goblinos. Now, this is what I'm going to show you in game, so you can see that really quick, that actual tick healing. Again, it heals over time, and we'll talk about when you want to use that more in the future, because there are specific times when it's very efficient for you to actually use those self heals. But for now, while I do have this good gameplay going, I want to talk about something else, which is with your Ice Arts, it's very good to use it in areas where enemies are lined up for max damage. If you don't know, your Ice Arts do pierce. They pierce teammates to heal and they pierce enemies with all that damage. So when you're in a good hallway setting just like this, that's when you really want to use your Ice Arts. You can go ahead and pop that and just slam through a bunch of enemies, and at the same time, if you can get your teammates in front of you, in between, which is what you're looking for as Luna Snow, is sandwiching your teammates in between your line of sight and then the enemies. You pop your Ice Arts and do a bunch of pierce, healing, and damage all at the same time, and that's why Luna Snow is one of those characters who's going to have a very high healing stat, but at the same time gets a pretty respectable damage stat as well, because she has these abilities that can just make her auto attacks go straight through your teammates while providing healing and pumping up your damage stat as well. So that makes her a very fun character right there, but you want to look for these areas of the map, just like in the gameplay right now, that's perfect to just line up your teammates and those enemies at once and just pump those stats up and help your team get the dub. I never really liked school, and honestly it was nice because my teachers would give me the dunce cap and my head got really cold, so I didn't really mind it that much. But I do have some numbers here for you guys, and I'll even throw it in game really quick to show you with your ice arts. In the limited amount of time that it is going, you can get off 9 shots of ice arts, which is pretty darn good. That's 9 blast of healing damage, or both if you can get that good lineup on your enemies. Now I do also want to talk about ice arts because what it's good for is burst healing and burst damage. When it comes to the actual numbers, again, one of my favorite things in the world, it actually does 50 damage per hit and 75 healing per hit, which is pretty darn nice when you think about it. And that's why you really want to use your ice arts in moments when you can get big burst healing or burst damage, and look for those moments where you really need that. Especially when you see something like a tank in front of you is when I want to really urge you to use your ice arts. If you see someone like your Venom or your Penny Parkers in front of you and they're getting their cheeks absolutely ravaged, and it's not like they asked for it, the consent is just not there, and you know we're all about consent on my channel. Well, in that case, you want to go ahead, pop your big ice arts and give them some huge burst heals. Even on a tank, again, it's giving you that huge burst of healing, so what that's going to do is give them the full health in just a few shots, and then you can switch to a different target, or even switch and use the rest of your shots on actual enemies and get some damage with it. So save your ice arts for those moments where you can get those 9 shots off and do as much burst healing or burst damage as possible, and you can use it in those actual piercing environments where you can get it right down a lane and hit as many targets as possible at once. Before we move on to talking about the freeze, which is a very integral part of this kit, I want to go ahead and talk about what I said earlier with when you should be using your self heals. And obviously you're thinking, well, when I'm missing health, obviously I should use my self heals. Yes, for the most part, obviously that's a good thing to do, but there are heals around the map that you can go and just pick up off the ground, and sometimes it might be a better idea if you can get to one of those easily to just utilize those. They're there to heal you, of course, and so is your passive, but you might be better suited to get those and put them on cooldown, and then when something, what I would recommend to you is like a Spider-Man that's up in my cheeks in this clip right here. You see he comes in, and I just pop one of my abilities that can actually self-heal me. That's what you want to save it for. When you're getting ticked from long range, say a Black Widow is, shooting some shots straight into your belly button, and you really want to keep that beautiful little umbilical cord button, then you can just go ahead, pop your self heals. If an Iron Fist, which we all know that's going to happen, or a Spider-Man comes diving into your butt cheeks, then go ahead, pop your abilities and get that extra healing. When you use it effectively, you get basically an extra 180 health tacked straight onto your health bar, and that's nothing to sneeze at, and I would really tickle your nose if I could make you sneeze, just saying, don't make it weird. But that's when you want to save your self-healing for those situations when people are getting those dives on you, so you can just keep yourself alive, because if you're not alive, you can't heal your teammates. So make sure you're saving those self-heals for those specific situations where you really need to keep yourself alive so that you can keep pushing with that team. Now let's talk about Luna Snow's freeze, a very important part of this kit, and when you think about it, she actually has a lot of good survivability on her own, with the fact that she has good damage, she has self-healing, and last but not least, she has good self-peel with her freeze. Now, I'm going to tell you this right off the bat, this freeze can be hard to hit sometimes. We'll talk about the actual aiming of it in a little bit, but what you want to do a lot of times when you're getting dove by those Iron Fists, by those Spider-Man, those Wolverines in some cases, just barrel stuff them. They're going to be right on your nuts anyways, so instead of scratching those nuts, go ahead and send your freeze out and give them a little chilly willy. That's what you need to be prioritizing. Once you actually freeze them, and I'll throw it in game so you guys can see this, that actual freeze is going to do 50 damage on its own. Very good stuff right there. You can combine that with your own auto attacks or even melee attacks if you need to reload your clip and you don't want to waste time on that. You can just go ahead and auto attack them. Your auto attacks do some decent damage. But usually what you want to be looking for is waiting and making sure you can try to hit some crits while they're frozen. You actually have 2.7 total seconds of freeze, so don't rush yourself too much. You can go ahead, take your time, and line up those crit shots so you can get as much damage off as possible. And I also want to say, you do actually end that freeze effect early when you damage the enemy. I'll throw it in game so you can see that. If you hit an enemy that's frozen, then it can actually end that freeze early, so there's nothing wrong with waiting until you have those shots lined up and you get those guaranteed crits. That's some discipline that I'm still working on myself to make sure in my own gameplay, when I freeze someone, you do kind of panic, you freak out and you're like, I just need to damage this guy, I need to kill him. No, if you can try to get yourself to learn to get that discipline in and just wait, then you can start guaranteeing yourself a lot more easy damage on these enemies in front of you. The last thing I want to say in this section is you can also just leave an enemy frozen. If you're low health and you can't heal yourself up because you have no other abilities, then you could just run away. You have your passive that procs after 0.5 seconds, so you could leave someone frozen for 2.7 seconds and then proc your passive in half a second and just run away and let your teammates find that frozen target and absolutely eat their cheek holes. There are a couple more things I want to talk about with this freeze before we move on to the rest of the kit, so let's go ahead and do that now. The first thing to know is that you actually saw in the gameplay a little bit ago, maybe a couple times so far, your freeze can actually knock airborne characters out of the sky, and it just makes them fall to the ground like a disgusting little popsicle. Usually a little Iron Man popsicle is what I see, because that's what you're going to be aiming those easy freezes on. I'll even throw it in game so you can see exactly what I'm talking about on this Galactobot, which, you know, was a harder target to hit than you would think. That thing was really zooming, but the point is, when you can't hit it, falls straight out of the sky. Very good stuff, very good tech right there for those Storm players, those Iron Man players, you know, anybody like that that's just up in the sky, as well as something like a Scarlet Witch. Actually, you could just freeze her like when she's going up and floating in the sky to ult and just knock her down to the ground. It's actually a very good counter. That's the stuff you want to be looking for, and especially because those characters, when they are floating up there, they just kind of sit still. And you might be like, well, it's hard to hit at those long distances. It's actually easier to hit this ability than you might think. When someone's zooming around on the ground like they stole Sonic's shoes and they're just busting it, yeah, it can be kind of hard to hit them. But if they're just floating up in the sky, well, the thing is, and I'm going to show you guys in game here, your right click ability, your freeze, it just goes straight forever. It doesn't have any fall off. It doesn't stop going forward. No, wherever your cursor was when you shot that ability, it's just gonna keep going there. It does not stop going straight ahead. So when you're aiming on those characters, put your cursor over them the same way you do with your basically hit scan abilities for your ice arts and auto attacks, and that thing is gonna fly straight to them. No questions asked. Keep that in mind. It's a very easy way to aim this thing. As soon as you actually have that in your head, you're like, oh, that's how it shoots? It just goes? Yeah, it just goes. And once you learn that, it's way easier to aim this thing. Now we're going to talk about the very last part of the basic kit for Luna Snow here, which is her idol aura. And I saved it for last because I think it's the most complicated part, and in reality it's really not that complicated. And the first thing I want to show you is I'm going to take you in game 4. When you have your idol aura on somebody, it actually gives them a 15% healing increase. So this is a very good thing to remember. When you have a target in front of you, a teammate in front of you, you can just slap this on top of them and give them a big healing boost. That's one of the biggest ways you want to actually use your healing aura. When you see a teammate in front of you and you see that they're getting low, especially like a tank, you can pop your idol aura on top of them, pop your ice arts so you get big chunk heals anyways, and they'll heal up in about 2 ice arts. It's a very good thing to do and to keep in mind. Now, when it comes to how to use ice arts throughout a match, I think you could ask any Luna Snow player and they'll all tell you their different ways that they use it. Personally, for me, I've been using it like this. At the beginning of a match, I like to put my idol aura on somebody that I know is a damage dealer that's going to be getting into the enemy backlines, such as a Magic, an Iron Fist, anything like that. You want to put it on that teammate and then prioritize healing your tanks. As that person's actually diving in and killing the enemy backlines, then what you're going to do is healing your tanks. It's going to heal the person that you have diving as well. So everyone's getting heals and they're keeping them alive in the backline and they're getting their job done. Everyone's happy. Later on in the match, that's going to change a little bit. That's when you're going to start changing your actual idol aura to whoever you think needs the heals at that moment. So like this Venom in front of me in the gameplay, you're going to see he was very low and I'm like, man, I just want to chunk heal this guy. So I just slap the idol aura right on top of him, and even though I'm not sharing healing with anybody else at that point in time, well, I'm healing up my tank. I'm keeping him alive and giving him that actual 15% healing bonus. So that's what you're going to be looking for. Eventually, I kind of leave it on a tank, and then sometimes, if you have the chance, you can leave it on a tank, and you can actually get aggressive and follow a damage dealer such as that Magic or Iron Fist. This is a very risky play and probably not going to be the smartest thing to do 90% of the time, but there's going to be that 10% of the time where you do have pretty good damage and some CC on Luna Snow, so you could follow in one of your damage dealers, keep your idol aura on that tank, and then go in with your damage dealer, heal them, and that'll throw heals back to your tank on the objective. So there's different ways you can do it like that. You're splitting your idol aura between 2 teammates depending on who's going in, and you can actually heal people when they're not even close to you in your line of sight. So that's kind of like the general loop that I follow with my Idle Aura. Depending on how you use it, please leave me a comment. And really with anything that I've talked about today, leave me comments telling me how you play Luna Snow. If you think I got anything wrong, especially like numbers or anything, please let me know and tell me how you play the character, because I'm always interested in learning. Now, the last thing I want to talk about with the Idle Aura is the fact that it doesn't expire. As far as I know, and I've looked and just sat in game for several minutes, Idle Aura, as soon as it's on a teammate, it doesn't disappear, which is a very good thing to remember, because you can just throw it on somebody and it's just gonna stay on, which means that you don't have to worry about reprocking it. As soon as it's on somebody's cheeks, it is on their cheeks. Kind of like me with your mom. You don't need to worry about me coming off those cheeks. I'm on there, baby. I'm like a leech. So just keep that in mind. It's a very, very, very strong ability. Learning how to use it, especially actively when you need to give somebody burst healing, or learning how to use it when you need to give someone healing from across the map because you know they're going to go in. Stuff like that comes with time, and I'm still learning it myself, but it's a very fun ability, a very strong ability, and one that just takes time to learn, and I think that's abilities that honestly I like the most in games, and I think you'll probably like it too. And with all that out of the way, those are all the tips I have for the base kit here. But we're not done yet. No, sit that beautiful tushy down. We're gonna talk about the ultimate, baby. Now, Luna Snow has an amazing ultimate that can pump out crazy heals or a damage boost. The first thing I want to talk about is, while you're watching this right now, you can kind of see you can't do anything else while you're using this ult. You can't shoot, you can't freeze, you can't use your abilities, you can't even melee your mama. So you might as well do what I like to recommend for you, which is just kind of look around. Turn around if you have to. Look at all your teammates behind you, in front of you, wherever your teammates may be, and then switch your aura depending on that. And I have plus 100 aura. I know that was cringy. Cut that out. You can switch your stance very easily as long as you're looking around and watching your teammates' health bars. You're not going to die when you're inside of Luna Snow ult. There's very few things that can actually kill you. Unless there's some kind of high skill Hawkeye on the enemy team smacking your head off, then you're probably going to be fine. So while you're in that ult, look at your allies' health. If they have high enough health bars, switch over to your damage stance so they can do a bunch of extra damage. As soon as you see that they're losing some health, that's when you switch back to your healing stance so you can keep them alive. And then as soon as they're back to full health, boop, go ahead, switch back over to that damage stance, and they can keep wrecking with some damage. You're just going to keep your eyes looking around to all your teammates around you, keeping them full health, and then as soon as you have them at that good health threshold, that's when you have the opportunity to go ahead and switch over to that damage stance so you guys can tear it up really quick, and then as soon as you see they're getting low at any point, that's when you go ahead and you switch it right back to the actual healing stance. It's very, very simple stuff, but it's a good thing to keep in mind. This is a quick one, but you need to learn the timing of your ult. It lasts 12 seconds, and you can see that on screen right there in the gameplay. There's a little timer on the right side of the screen there. Very simple. So just keep that in mind, look at that timer. The reason you really need to learn that timing on that ult is so that you can make sure right before it ends, I say the last 2 seconds basically, make sure you're falling back, making sure you're not still on the front lines. You get yourself to an advantageous position so that as soon as you fall out of that ult, you don't just die. So you need to think about your positioning, say, okay, where am I going to be standing when this ult ends? Because if the answer is right in front of the enemies, well, then you're going to get your booty licked, and it's not going to be like prom night. It's going to be bad. Next up is something else that's quite simple, but it's a good thing to keep in mind. Dealing damage and doing heals increase your ultimate regeneration rate, as well as there is a base just percentage regeneration over time. So those are the 3 things. Just wait, do damage, and heal. Mainly you're going to be focusing on your healing, and that'll help you actually regen that ult as much as possible. After that, I want to talk about finding a good balance of bringing your ult to your team and letting them come to you. So again, talking about positioning a little more on that ultimate. Oftentimes staying near the cap point or the push point is going to be your best option, and then you can kind of let your teammates trickle in towards you, because when people see that ultimate stuff, they're like, oh, that looks nice, and they want to walk in, they want to stand in it. You know, people know what that stuff looks like in this game. They do want to be inside of it. But at the same time, if you see someone behind you, let's say a Punisher's behind you, and he doesn't want to push up as far as he has to like get inside of your ult, well, you see him get a little low health, you could just run back really quick, have him inside of your actual ultimate aura for like 2 seconds, he'll be full health, and then you could turn right back around and go back to the rest of your teammates. They're not going to die that quickly to where you can't just go back and heal and then run back. So sometimes you're doing this balancing act of seeing how much you can run to your teammates to heal them, and then also letting them come to you. Just make sure you're not solely running to them, because at the end of the day, you can only be so responsible while also keeping yourself in good positioning, because just like we talked before, when that ult ends, you got to be in a good position. And if you're just running to your teammates, you're going to maybe misposition yourself to a degree that you could just lose the match off of it. So be very careful with that stuff. And the very last tip I have for you guys is to remember, just like in the gameplay right now, you could actually see there, and I'll throw it in game so you can see it one more time, you actually get a 250 health shield when you ult, which is almost double your health bar. So a very good health shield, and that's something you need to be using at the beginning of your ult. The way I like to use it is kind of going immediately into your damage stance. As long as you don't need to immediately heal your teammates, I should say, then you can actually use that health shield to just take some free damage without needing to heal yourself yet, and then let your teammates do a bunch of extra damage. And then when that health shield falls off and you actually do need to start healing yourself, well, that's when you can go ahead and switch your ult into its healing stance. So make sure you realize that you do have that shield, and in some rare situations, you won't even have to use your shield because your teammates are just in front of you taking all the damage, and your ult ends and you still have your health shield. Just remember that health shield actually does stay on you. So if there's ever a very rare situation, which I'm gonna tell you, it is rare, usually your health shield is gone by the time your ult ends, but if for whatever reason your ult actually ends and you still have that shield on you, you do keep it. You do keep that health shield, which is a very cool part of the kit right there. And with all of that out of the way, we have our tips and our little guide here finished, and I hope you guys did enjoy it. I want to say at the end here, thank you guys so much for watching that first guide video, and for anyone who subscribed, I just really appreciate it. That was my first try at Marvel Rivals content, this one being my second. I plan to make a bunch more because you guys, I got over 260 new subscribers off that one video. My first video to ever hit 1,000 likes, and I did Destiny 2 content for years, but that community, I mean, they stink in a lot of ways, but they were also just never very active. They didn't engage a lot, but something I've really liked seeing is how much engagement you guys have. I've enjoyed talking to all of you so much, and you left me so many fun new tips in the comments of that Cloak and Dagger guide. Like again, I said, I'm gonna put that on the end screen, but I really appreciated that because I learned so many new things from you guys. So again, I wanna ask you the same thing in this comment section. Please tell me whatever tips you have for Luna Snow. I wanna get better at her, and in the future, I can include that in my content so we can all get better at her together. And that's just awesome to me because this game is really fun. I plan to keep playing it and keep making content on it as long as people are enjoying it. But I just wanted to say how much I really just appreciate the hell out of everyone who's stuck around lately, everyone who sticks around off this video. It means the world, and that kind of engagement that you guys have given showed the algorithm how much you loved that content, and it just made everything 1,000 times more effective for my channel. So again, I'm just endlessly appreciative of that. Thank you guys so much. If you do want to subscribe, we're getting really close to 10,000 subscribers, which I'm excited to do with the new Marvel Rivals crowd. So if you want to be part of the team here, then I appreciate having y'all around. But hey, that is going to do it for me today. So as always, have a great day.